Hello, and welcome to Strange Times number 8. This is actually a take 2, because I don't want to go into it because it'll make me upset, but I woke up early in the morning to record this so there'd be no traffic noise, and I had a little bit of a mischief. For some reason, when I'd finished everything, I came back to start editing, and there was nothing on the file. It didn't save. And I'm still a little bit salty about that, so, I'm just going to move on, and we'll kick off with this first story, which is a pretty cool story. Have any of you ever heard of the Blackbird of Chernobyl? Because I'm going to start reading through this story, and I think it's going to remind you of something. And so here we go. The frightening supernatural story of the Blackbird of Chernobyl. In the days leading up to the Chernobyl disaster, workers at the nuclear power plant claimed to have seen a creature known as the Blackbird. The terrifying creature rose above the horizon of Chernobyl and Pripyat. That sounded a little bit Ukrainian, don't you reckon? Pripyat. That's all I got. I can do South African. I'm from South Africa. That's a bit... I don't know if I'll keep that in or not. It's a bit terrible. Anyway, let me continue. A hideous humanoid with giant wings, a black headless body, and red glowing eyes, which sent a message of doom to all who gazed upon it. In the days leading up to the Chernobyl disaster, several of the workers in the control room of the nuclear power plant in northern Ukraine claimed to have seen the creature that is known as the Blackbird of Chernobyl. Those unlucky enough to see the creature were said to be plagued with terrifying dreams and threatening phone calls. Still others believe the Blackbird of Chernobyl was a form of the creature known as Mothman, whose presence only ever meant one thing: a catastrophic event would soon follow. Sydney archaeologist Robert Maxwell is the only archaeologist who has ever worked at Chernobyl, completing 2 field excursions at the exclusion zone in 2010 and 2012. He is passionate about the place in both a historical and archaeological sense. There is little Maxwell doesn't know about Chernobyl, on matters of both the physical and the supernatural world. Maxwell told news.com.au that the legend of the Blackbird of Chernobyl was something he had heard about when he was in the exclusion zone. Quote, "The legend states that in the days leading up to April 26, 1986, a supernatural creature was sighted in the sky over Chernobyl by many of the men in the control room. They also claimed to have seen this terrifying creature just before the explosion," Maxwell said. "Now it's become one of those fables that's difficult to track because it relies on the accounts of other people who died due to radioactive contamination. The Blackbird has also become one of those fairly safe legends where, if you try to look for proof, it might not be available because the workers are dead, or maybe the sightings were never officially recorded. So for people trying to check the veracity of these claims, of course, you've got to take them on face value because there's not a lot of history or archaeology to go on. But the stories persist, even to this day." Maxwell continues, "These legends fill a place for us as humans that the ghost stories and stories by the fireside fulfilled back in earlier centuries. But there are a couple of versions of the Blackbird story, and the earliest known account seems to have come from 2005. According to the legend, rumours went through the ranks of Chernobyl that 5 employees had seen a large, dark, headless creature with gigantic wings and fire-red eyes. Chernobyl employees began sharing strangely similar experiences. Some had horrifying nightmares, while others received threatening phone calls, Maxwell said. The second account I've heard of this story comes from 2007, which says that people in and around the power plant began to experience a series of strange events revolving around sightings of a mysterious creature, also described as a large, dark and mutated creature with large wings and piercing red eyes. People affected by the phenomena also experienced nightmares and had first-hand encounters with the winged beast. Some of the workers reported their bizarre experiences to supervisors of the facility, but there was very little these officials could do, even if they had been willing to take action. Then, in April, disaster struck. End quote. Reactor number 4 of the nuclear power plant exploded on April 26, 1986, and 2 days later, the entire city of Pripyat was evacuated. Pripyat. It was several years later that the stories of the Blackbird began to spread. Quote, because the workers apparently described the Blackbird as a headless, large-winged black creature with no head, but with fire-red eyes, most people took this to mean the eyes appear in the torso. So it sounded very similar to the Mothman sightings in the West. Many people believe the Mothman, like the Blackbird of Chernobyl, are harbingers of doom, in the same way that the Banshee was a herald of doom and death to many Celtic societies. Close quote. Mothman sightings are an enduring mystery that began in November 1967 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. More than 100 locals reported seeing what they described as a 6-foot tall, 182 centimeter tall, beast covered in hair or feathers with a wingspan of 6 to 10 feet and bright, glowing red eyes. Then in December, a chain suspension bridge across the Ohio River from Point Pleasant to Gallipolis crashed into the river at peak hour, killing 46 people. The Mothman was also reportedly spotted in Germany on September 10, 1978, when a mine collapsed in Freiburg, killing several miners. But more than 20 miners who were supposed to work that day were apparently scared away by the sight of a Mothman-like creature perched at the entrance of the mine. This creature was known as the Freiburg Shrieker. Arlene, that's your new nickname? The Arlene Freiburg Shrieker. And now it's seen as a type of Grim Reaper, appearing just before death. Actually, this morning when I recorded this, the first time, I was making jokes about Arlene being the Freiburg Shrieker. And it occurred to me afterwards that, it was kind of like a harbinger of doom for my recording. And so, I should have heeded the warning and double checked. So anyway, I'm just talking crap like I do. So I'll continue here. This is Maxwell continuing on. For others, the Mothman is a completely supernatural entity that's drawn in, like a moth is drawn to a flame. The Mothman, or the Blackbird, is simply drawn to energy of disasters, or so the story goes, Maxwell said. And as for Maxwell, the question remains, during his 2 field excursions to the Chernobyl exclusion zone, did he see anything supernatural? And Maxwell replies, no, absolutely not. It was entirely very much real terror when you're there. What's truly frightening is that you've got the all-encompassing, overwhelming threat of radioactive contamination if you do the wrong thing or go in the wrong place or lean against the wrong object. There are certain things in the zone today for which any contact for any prolonged period of time will definitely kill you. There is one thing in particular that I still think about quite a lot. The claw. Close quote. Next week, news.com.au will bring you the story of the claw, the most contaminated thing at Chernobyl. And I'm going to steal that story, and I'm going to bring it to you here at Strange Times. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting actually, that in Chernobyl, in the Ukraine, the Mothman, this creature, this entity, and in Germany, Arlene Freeberg was standing there at the mine, saving the people, saved some of them. This next story is totally different. It's an interesting mix of alien abduction and kind of some sort of fairy abduction or something. It's a strange mix. Did I take a trip into fairyland? I had an unusual night. I was sleeping in my tent in a bamboo forest, and at some point I woke up because I heard something moving inside the tent. I assumed it was a raccoon or a possum, and that I must have left the tent unzipped. I grabbed my stick and clicked on a flashlight. There was a young Asian girl, toddler-sized, standing there staring at me. She was wearing a blue dress with yellow polka dots. "Where the hell did you come from?" I said. She waved a hand, and I just lay back down and fell right back to sleep and into a very strange, vivid dream. I was in a very earthy interior, all wood and stone. Two women, one a small Asian with thick round glasses that magnified her eyes, and one taller white woman with curly dark hair, led me to what appeared to be a massage table. They were wearing white lab coats and blue scrubs. That's not very fairy-like, is it? It's very clinical. I undressed and got on the table, face down, expecting a back massage. They felt around on my body, pressing gently from one end to the other. It was pleasant, but not what I was expecting. I think we all know what he is expecting. After a time, I was told I was free to leave. As I was walking out, the Asian woman said, "You know we love you very much." I woke up as I exited the room. It was after 9 a.m. I never sleep that late. My tent had a rip a couple of feet along the base, and the place had been ransacked. All of my food supply was dumped outside on the ground. The only things that had been eaten, though, were the sweets. See what I mean? What a strange mix of abduction and some sort of strange, maybe old school fairy abduction. A lot of researchers have sort of suggested that, maybe it's the same phenomenon. It's just that we perceive it differently in the modern age. And so this same phenomenon is going to continue on. It's just a part of, some sort of human mystical type experience that some of us have. Later it might be some sort of AI or some sort of, wherever our culture's heading, it'll be the same sort of phenomena, but with different actors. And man, I gotta say, this traffic is driving me crazy. I don't know if it comes through on the mic, but every time a big truck goes by, I gotta stop and, oh man. Anyway, that part's not gonna be added. And just to wrap things up, gotta light-hearted, fun one that Sestra Pryor directed me towards. Thanks, Sestra. The Peacocks of Banks. Forget dive-bombing seagulls. There is a new menace stalking the streets. Peacocks. An ostentation of more than a dozen peacocks and peahens has invaded banks near Southport, devouring fruit and vegetables in people's gardens, devastating flower beds, and leaving droppings on cars and driveways. Can you imagine the size of a peacock's shit? Especially on your car. Fuck that. Villagers are at a loss to explain where the colourful birds have come from, and their mysterious arrival follows a recent plague of feral chickens, which were driven out after months of running wild on the estate. The sight of sparring peacocks in the middle of a road has even forced traffic to a halt on numerous occasions since they took up residence in the well-to-do community. Gino Hanlon, 71, told the Daily Mail, "They're absolutely beautiful, but they're a damn nuisance. They make the most horrendous noise all through the night." She said that she often tries to chase the birds with a feather duster or her husband's walking stick, but they don't seem frightened at all. I said it before in my first recording. Can you just imagine this old 71-year-old running down the street with her feather duster to try and chase off these giant birds? Peacocks are huge, by the way. So I'll continue. On one occasion, she heard an almighty crash and rushed outside to find that a large peacock had leapt onto a neighbour's greenhouse and fallen through the glass. Quote, "They're everywhere," she said. "Some of us have got water pistols. We thought it would be a way to frighten them off without hurting them, but that doesn't work either. In the road, they sit down and won't budge. Cars have to stop until they decide to move. Or you could just run it over. If you hate it that much, just run the freaking thing over." No, I couldn't do that. I'm just saying, though, there are options. One woman complained that a peacock pecked a dent in her car when it caught the sight of its reflection in the paintwork and then began to spar with it. I have seen little birds do that. It would be quite amusing to see a peacock do that. Birds are crazy, eh? Apparently they're the descendants of dinosaurs. Anyway, let's go. Neighbour Kathy Bell, 62, said, "They are marauding daily through our tidy gardens, trampling on our bedding plants and pooing on the lawns. Like I said, a peacock poo would be a thing to behold. I can understand. I reckon, would a peacock's poo be bigger than a dog's poo? Might have to Google that later." Despite the complaints, some residents have welcomed the birds and have even been spotted feeding them. There are various theories about their origin, with some claiming that they have come from a nearby farm, which was also blamed for the feral chicken plague. Another explanation is that they are the descendants of a pair believed to have been kept in the grounds of a nearby mock Tudor manor house, demolished in 2009. Attack of the Peacocks. Man, I love the British. I love how they take the piss out of themselves too. It's awesome. Anyway, I got through it for the second time. And so that's all I've got for you this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you next week.